Rockets and Knicks were in Game 5 when O.J. started that fateful drive. His four-way hazard lights were blinking, and no one knew what the Jews was thinking.
I've been to Reno, Chicago, Fargo, Minnesota, Buffalo, Toronto, Winslow, Sarasota, Wichita, Tulsa, Ottawa, Oklahoma, Tampa, Panama, Mattawa, La Paloma, Bangor, Baltimore, Salvador, Amarillo, Tocopilla, Barranquilla, and Padilla. I'm a killer. I've been everywhere, man. I've been everywhere, man. Across the desert bare, man. I breathe the mountain air, man. I've traveled, I've had my share, man. I've been everywhere.
This is Oversight Live, your advocate for good governance. We're putting the site back in. Oversight. Here's the watcher on the wall, your host, Ben Carpenter.
Hey, good evening, folks. Thanks for joining us here on Oversight Live. I am Ben Carpenter, and we've had a little hiatus. A little bit more technical difficulties, keeping things running. But that's, you know what? You only fail if you quit. So we're gonna keep on trucking, using a different program here today to broadcast. So if there's some hiccups, it is all going to be user operator error here because brand new show, first time using it. Going to be hosting from StreamYard instead of Riverside Studio. For the first time, having some issues with Riverside. Anyway, what is Oversight? So Oversight Live was an idea here to help translate some experience that I've had for 6 years in the legislature to you. Juneau is off the road system. It is not accessible without great expense in both time and money. And so here we are with technology. I can bring you information on the internet that if I don't bring it to you, then probably the only way you're going to hear about it's in the news. You're going to see some clips on social media or some written piece or whatever. And I'm tired of not seeing the actual truth. So when we have a conversation today about a not a tax bill, a voting bill that got passed in the legislature, in the Alaska legislature, then you need to know the actual truth. And I'm going to show you the actual truth. And you don't have to, wade through the opinions of, the left or the right or any of that, because I'm a fiscal and social conservative. So you're going to have that bias, but I'm going to actually show you the truth. Like I'm going to show you the document and I'm going to read it and then you're going to see it. And I'm going to show you where you can find it. There's no alternative but to be inquisitive and want to know what is actually out there for the truth. If you're going to rely on other people, then you're going to get what you get. Well, what you get with me is the truth. I'm going to actually show you the facts, right? You're going to get my opinion along the way. If you've got questions, go ahead and add them into your chat window there, and I'm going to get them and hopefully be able to answer them. I just realized that I've got my chat window open here, but I don't see my public chat. So I'm not sure where to find that. I'm looking for it. I'm looking for it. Comments. So this is probably where it's going to show up. So if you send me your comment, I'll be able to see it if I've got the right thing selected here. So we're going to get going here. So what happened in the Senate? So in the House, the House passed a Senate Bill 64, that was a election integrity bill, election reform bill should be the better word to use. It's reforming the elections. And a lot's been written about it. Hey, there's Christopher popping up. I got you, Christopher. Thanks for Ops check. Good. I got your text message. Good to see you today. Okay, so here we go. Here is the bill. It's really tiny. You can't see that. Let me make it a little bigger. And that's a little bigger. And this makes it even much more bigger. So do I need to back up and show you where to find this? Hopefully we can figure that out by now. But here is the Alaska Legislature website. That's akleg.gov. And you just type in right up here, you just type in SB and then the bill number, SB 64, and it comes up on this page. And then you click on full text if you want to read the texts, the full text of the bill. And then this icon right here is going to get you the most recent version, and you can see the date associated with it for figuring out what the most recent version is. And interestingly enough, it shows also here passed. So we're dealing with a piece of legislation that's passed both the House and the Senate and the date that it's passed. So the next stop here, well, the next stop is back to the Senate because the House passed a Senate bill, but they amended it. So it's been amended, as it says right here. Look, there's an amended House, amended H. And that means that the Senate is going to have to decide whether they want to concur with the amendments. Then if they do, then the bill moves on to the next step, which would be to the governor. If they don't, then they'll have to put a conference committee together and figure out what they want to do with the changes. Anyway, we'll see what the Senate has to do. But today we're going to look at the actual text, because I had a conversation earlier today that was, it was clear that we, not everybody's actually read the text, as funny as that might sound. So what does the bill actually do, right? So you're looking at this Senate Bill 64 here. And if you want to reference discussing with other people, it's version K.A. And when you're talking to legislators or anybody in the legislature that deals with bills, this number up here is the specific number, because you have many different versions of this bill. This is House Committee Substitute for Senate Bill number 64, Finance, Amended House. That's a full title, but it tells you where it's been changed and what committees and whatever has been changed. So the version of the bill, you could be referring to different versions depending on if you're talking about one that was in a committee. But the final version is this version right here, is Amended House. So now we're just going to scroll through. There's the title telling you kind of the overview of the bill. And now I'm just going to show you how to very quickly read through a bill. And some sections are quicker to understand what's happening, and others take a little bit more investigation. Okay. Section 1, just run right down here. And this way, you know exactly what's happening with this bill. So section 1 is amending this statute, AS 15.7.060 subsection C. It's amending it. So now, since it says amend, you can look for the change. The change is underlined by the change or the addition is being underlined. And that's what makes it easy to see. Okay, so this statute, it's not complete because it's only C. A, B, and A and B are, if you were looking at the actual statute, A and B would be above it on the text, but we don't have that before us in the bill. We just have the pertinent section that's being changed. So it's section C, okay? That kind of threw me when I started looking at bills. I'm like, I don't have any context. What's the rest of the A and B? You got to actually pull up the whole statute and look at it that way if you want to see what the context is. So this bill just addresses this portion of that statute in C, and it adds this text. Okay. So each applicant who requests registration in person before a registration official shall exhibit one form of an identification. They're adding the words or they didn't add or, they said identification card issued by federally recognized tribe. And they deleted, see here, these brackets, and it's in all caps. They deleted hunting or fishing license. Okay. So that's all that section 1 does, is add identification card by a federally recognized tribe and delete hunting and fishing license for this particular statute. Section 2 is amended to read. Okay, so it's again just an amend. And let me jump to one that shows you what what would be different if it was something other than just amend. Okay, so the next section 3, we'll come back to 2, says section 3 is amended by adding new subsections to read. Okay, so now everything that's below this is going to be brand new. It doesn't have a line as brand new because it's a whole new subsection. Okay, so let's go back up to 2. Amended to read. So for context, you can read it, but you can find the change really quickly. It just says identification card issued by a federally recognized tribe, delete hunting or fishing license. So this is 1507060E. So there's a different part of the statute that is being amended to say the same thing that this other part of the statute was being amended. Okay. So now, if you want to know what that part of the statute is, obviously you got to go look and see, but that's what the bill's doing, is amending this into it. Okay. So this says, for an applicant requesting an initial registration by mail, by facsimile, or other electronic transmission approved by the director under this other statute, or by completing a permanent fund dividend application, the director shall verify the information provided in compliance with A and 2 of this section, or A2 and 3 of this section, through state agency records described in this statute. If the applicant cannot comply with the requirement of A2 of this section because the applicant has not been issued any of the listed numbers, the applicant may instead submit a copy of one of the following forms of identification. So it's already listed: driver's license, state ID card, current and valid photo ID, birth certificate, passport, adds identification card issued by federal recognized tribe, and deletes hunting or fishing license. Okay, so what's the new subsection that we just talked about a second ago? All right. This is amending the statute AS 1507070 is amended by adding a entirely new subsection. And that's so it'll be subsection N, O, and P. And then section 4 starts. So the division may use, this is new law. The division may use information provided by DOR, Department of Revenue, under these statutes. Don't ask me what those statutes say. I don't have all of the statutes memorized. If I'm reading this and I'm like, I don't know what that means, then I would have open in another window the statutes, and I would just quick go over and search those statutes to figure out what the context of what they're meaning for that, right? And we could do that. Maybe we need to. Maybe not. Okay, so division may use information provided by DOR under these statutes only to register a voter and conduct voter roll maintenance. Oh, the other part of this too, that I want to also pause here for just a second because I was talking about these statutes. Sometimes, since this is a brand new section, there might be another brand new section in this bill, and these statutes refer to that section. So if you go looking for the actual statute in the online, you may not find it. You'll be like, what the heck? I don't understand. Ben said it was going to be here. Well, that's because it hasn't been created yet. This statute might be referring, or this part of the bill might be referring to a statute that doesn't exist yet, and you find it in another section within this bill. Okay, so don't be surprised if you go looking for it and you got the numbers right and you aren't dyslexic about it and it doesn't come up. That's because it wasn't created yet. Okay, so we're talking about information used to register a voter and conduct voter roll maintenance. Except as provided in this other statute, the division may not disclose confidential information obtained from the Department of Revenue. The division, in cooperation with the DOR, shall submit an annual report to the governor and to the Senate Secretary and Chief Clerk of the House of Representatives of the Legislature on or before the first day of the regular session of the legislature, and notify the legislature that the report is available. And this is what the report is going to tell the legislature: the number of permanent fund dividend applicant records shared with the division during the previous year, the effect that shared permanent fund dividend applications had on voter roll maintenance under N of this section, which you're looking at in this new section right up here, right? So now it might be pertinent to go look at these statutes. Okay, and on election integrity. So they're going to report on these numbers of applications and on what the impact is on voter integrity. Number 3 is security measures taken to protect voter information. The final section that's added in statute in this section, voter roll maintenance, includes confirming the residency of a registered voter, identifying duplicate registrations, detecting voters who have moved, and detecting voters who are ineligible to vote under this other statute. Okay, so that's a partial picture. If you want a complete picture, you probably need to look at these statutes and figure out exactly what they're except as provided by so that you fully understand it. But I'm able to kind of get a gist of what it's attempting to do here, not looking at those statutes at this time, and I'm not going to pause long enough to go do that. We've got a number of pages to look through here, and I want to keep flowing. We're going to try to get quicker here. Okay, section 3 is amended, so now we can look for the lines, the underlines, and the deletions. So periodically at time of the director's choosing, but not less frequently than January of each calendar year, the director shall examine the master register, so the master voter roll, maintained under this statute, and shall send by forwardable, what it used to be non-forwardable mail, by forwardable mail to the voter's registration mailing address and to the voter's electronic mail address, if available, a notice requesting address confirmation or correction. The notice must explain that the voter's registration will be inactivated unless the voter responds to the notice within 45 days after the date of the notice is sent. The director shall send the notice to each, and this is a statute that already existed there. Okay, so now down in subsection 2, it's changing by adding the words "and." So, to each voter who has not contacted the division in the 2 years immediately preceding the examination of the register, and who has not voted or appeared in the vote for 28 months, which is 2 general elections, immediately preceding the examination of the register, or who the division, and this is entirely new here, who the division has learned after registering to vote in this state and during the 28 months preceding the examination of the register has done a bunch of these things to say that I'm not going to be a resident of the state anymore. Okay. So if they registered to vote in another state, got a driver's license in another state, registered a vehicle in another state, public assistance from another state, served on a jury in another state, received homestead or residential property tax exemption in another state, received a benefit available only to residents or another state, they're going to get noticed by the Division of Elections that their voter registration is going to be inactivated unless they respond to the notice within 45 days. So if there's extenuating circumstances as to why they are going to maintain their residency as Alaska, but they received a homestead or a residential property tax exemption in another state, they're going to need to explain that to the Division of Elections. I don't know whether that violates the law that they, I doubt that it does, but if you receive a property tax exemption in another state for property that you own, and that state allows that, and the state of Alaska allows that, and you can still maintain your residency in the state of Alaska, meaning you're not trying to be a resident of the other state, and the other state doesn't require you to be a resident to receive the property tax exemption. I don't know. I'm hypothetically speaking here. Then you contact the Division of Elections. It doesn't automatically pop you off the voter rolls. It just says, hey, you're going to be inactivated unless you contact us within 45 days. But if you were moving to another state and you accepted a property tax exemption because you're going to be a resident of that state, then the Division of Elections can now begin the process of removing you from the voter rolls. Right now, they keep them on there for 8 years or something like that. Okay. I've been talking a lot. Take just a pause here to rest my tongue. All right. Section 1507130B is amended to read: if a registered voter does not respond to a notice sent under A of this section within 45 days after the date the notice is sent, the director shall inactivate the voter's registration. Okay, that's what the bill does. And what is it? It deletes the previous statute here. This is all highlighted or uppercase and in brackets. Okay, so this is all being deleted. What it used to say is if a registered voter has not, within the preceding 4 calendar years, contacted the division and has neither voted nor appeared to vote in a local, regional, in an election, and and a notice sent to the voter under this section was returned undeliverable, the voter shall be advised by notice sent by the forwarding mail to the voter's last known address that registration will be inactivated unless the voter responds to the notice in no later than 45 days. Okay. So before we pass this bill and before the governor signs it, they still had 45 days to contact Division of Elections, say, hey, wait a second, I'm a legitimate Alaskan. I don't want to give up my voting rights here. Please don't take me off the rolls. Okay. But the process for doing that is a little bit more clear as to why they would pull you off the rolls, not just within the preceding 4 calendar years contacted the division or voted or responded to this advice. So it's a little bit more clear now as to what are the things the Division of Elections should be looking for to suspect somebody is not a resident of the state anymore. Okay. And help clear off the rolls. Okay. It also adds the director shall cancel a voter inactive registration in accordance with the procedures set out in federal code, in the federal law. Okay. Section 6 amended to read the notice sent under A of this section must include a postage prepaid. So it's just changing the A from B. And then, because all of this was existed. It's just amending where the previous letter was from, or the previous paragraph. Instead of B, it's A. Let me just double check here. 130B, 1507 130. 1507 130. Okay, so this was section B that we just talked about. Now this section is referencing, instead of B, it's the section A prior, but it wasn't in here. You'd have to go look at the law. Okay, notice sent under A of this section must include a postage prepaid and pre-addressed return card. So that's still the same. Okay, what they did change is the 34th month instead of saying the 4th calendar year. So what is that in reference to? So we go here and say the notice sent under this section, the notice must indicate that the voter's registration will be canceled if the voter does not contact the division during or vote or appear to vote in an election held during the period beginning on the date of the notice and ending on the day after the last day of the 34th month. So they're going to give them 34 months that occurs after the date of that notice. So that's when they're going to have their registration, voter registration pulled. Okay, right? The notice is sent. The notice must indicate that the voter's registration will be canceled. 34 months henceforth. And it's already communicating to them how the voter can continue to be eligible. Okay, so there's some voter responsibility here in the state of Alaska, which I think is good, that if you want to maintain your voter registration, but you've done some of these other things that the state says, that looks like you might not want to vote in Alaska anymore. You might not be a resident. So we don't want to send out an absentee ballot for you, or we don't want your name to be on the list that somebody else could vote inadvertently or or fraud to happen, right? So we're going to remove your name from the list, but you got 34 months to figure it out. Okay. So, statute 1507130F is being amended. So it adds the text, an individual does not contact the division by applying for a permanent fund dividend unless the application for a permanent fund dividend is the voter's initial registration. Okay, so what is that? All right, so for the purpose of this section, a voter contacts the division if the voter notifies the division of a change of address, responds to a notice sent under this section, signs a petition for a ballot measure, requests a new voter registration card, or otherwise communicates with a division other than to vote or to register to vote. So for the statute's perspective and from the election office's perspective, if you apply for a permanent fund dividend, they're not going to see that unless the application is the voter's initial registration. Okay, so that because there's a statute that says initial registrations, you're automatically registered to vote. Okay, You're not re-registered to vote every time you file a subsequent PFD application. But if you do submit an application and it's not your first time, then they're not going to count that as contact. That's what that says. So far, is there anything, looking over here real quick at the text here, so far, is there anything here in this bill that you object to that makes our elections worse? Okay, here's an entirely new subsection. We're on to section 8. And this is going to say something similar here. The division shall adopt regulations to review voter registration records and update the master register. So just right off the bat, this is going to tell the Division of Elections what it has to do to implement this other portion of the law that we just saw. Okay, so it's the statute directing the division to create regulation to govern how it's going to execute this policy change. The regulations must include reviews for deceased voters. I mean, can you believe that we're actually having to put it in statute? The Division of Elections wouldn't do that already. But here it is. Now it's going to be part of the law that says the division shall adopt regulations specifically to include reviews for deceased voters, voters convicted of a felony involving moral turpitude, persons not qualified to vote under this statute, persons registered to vote in another state, whether the number of registered voters on the master register exceeds the number of eligible voters in the state, and voter registration information data breaches. Okay, so they're going to have to now go and make sure they have, maybe they already have regulations for this, but some of it, I doubt it. Now they have to, because it's going to be in statute. In conducting these reviews, the division shall, to the extent possible, gather and examine available data from all other states and information from the USPS, United States Postal Service, forwarding databases, or one or more systems for verifying citizenship, motor vehicle records, Department of Corrections records, property sales tax records, United States Social Security databases, jury records. It's an entire list of directing where to go to start comparing Alaska's voter rolls to other people, or to people to like, we need you to create regulations that are going to do these things. So this is what we want you and expect you to do. Division of Elections. The division shall also review evidence that a person has undertaken the following activities in another state. This sounds familiar because it fits with what we just read in the other portion of the statute that's being amended, right? Similar things. In performing its review under this section, the division may not transmit information made confidential under this other statute to a person, non-governmental organization, or government agency outside the division unless the information is encrypted and the person, the NGO or government agency receiving the information uses the information only to assist the division in carrying out its duties, agrees that the person, non-NGO or government agency will not retain the information after assisting the division, agrees that the person, NGO or government agency will not transmit the information to another person, non-NGO, government agency. So they're going to keep that information to themselves. Division shall, in consultation with an external, nationally recognized subject matter expert selected by the division, annually audit the master register. Would you have, before this bill was passed, would you expect that the Division of Elections was auditing the master register, the voter rolls? Well, if they weren't, now they have to, because it's in statute. They're going to get a subject matter expert who's nationally recognized. I don't know what that means. That's open to some interpretation here, right? I mean, is that a list of 1 or is that a list of 10 that fit that category? I don't know. But this is something that the division's going to have to figure out. And they're going to annually audit the master voter rolls. Division shall consider the subject matter expert's recommendations so there's some discretion within the language here that the Division of Elections doesn't have to do exactly what the audit comes back with, but they have to consider it. By the 1st of April of each year, the division shall publish a report describing the most recent audit and accounting for the criteria reviewed under G of this section. And the report must include the experts, the people you hired, recommendations, identify protocols used under this the section we just created, provide election information, including the number of voters on the master register and total population eligible to vote, and highlight voting data problems, irregularities, errors, vulnerabilities identified in the audit. You would think that this is already being done, but it's now having to be created in statute. The division shall submit the report to the Senate Secretary, to the legislature here, and notify the legislature that the report is available on or before the date the report is published. If the division reasonably determines that a voter is away from the state for a reason permissible under this other statute, or another state or federal law related to voting in elections, the division is not required to send a notice to the voter under this section we just created. In addition to a notice or response required under this section, at any time the division may contact a voter to obtain, or a voter may contact the division to provide information determining the voter's residence. Okay. I don't have a problem with that. This sounds like it's actually making things better in the state of Alaska for elections. Section 9 amends with a new subsection. It amends statute 1507-195. The director shall publish on the division's internet website notice of the nature and severity of a data breach of information made confidential by this section, and report the details of the breach to the legislature. They got to do that before the day of an election. If the data breach happens or is discovered within 14 days of an election. Why do we have to write this in statute? Oh, because this is something that happened and nobody was notified until after the election. Before certifying the results of an election, so this notification is going to happen before certifying the results of an election, if the data breach happens or is discovered on or after the day of the election, but before certification of the election results. Why would that be necessary? Oh, because that's what happened. We found out after the certification of the election that we had a voter roll, our voter rolls were hacked into. Within 30 days after the data breach, if the data breach happens or is discovered 14 or more days before an election or after the certification of the election results. Notwithstanding this E of this section, the director may delay publishing notice of a data breach if law enforcement is investigating the data breach, informs the director that disclosure of the data breach would compromise an ongoing investigation into the data breach. Okay, I can understand that. So, holy cow. All right, so now there's statute that tells the director they have to publicly publish information about data breaches. A new subsection is added to AS 1510-105. The director shall employ a rural community liaison. The rural community liaison shall collaborate with tribes and municipalities to facilitate access in rural areas of the state to absentee voting and where it is available, early voting, and ensure that precincts in rural areas of the state are adequately staffed. Okay. This is this part of the bill is something that I find is unnecessary. Although it's not a showstopper, you're basically saying that the director has to hire another person. So this is going to add cost to the budget. Or maybe you don't. Maybe you can transfer one of your positions or give somebody an additional duty. I'm not sure how the director can figure this out, but somebody has to have a job description here, a purpose of being a rural liaison. And personally, I think this is really insulting to rural communities. Like, you guys can't, we're assuming you can't figure things out on how to vote and how to conduct elections without the director paying somebody to come alongside and hold your hand. It's insulting. If I was that rural person, that's what I would take. But you know what? Maybe we've got problems out in rural areas in Alaska that people are not taking elections seriously, and they need to. And there's others in the community that are like, I don't know why we don't have somebody doing something about this. We can't vote on time. Okay, well, this is government's solution, right? It's the representative solution to say, okay, government's going to force ourselves to go take care of some problem that's happening out there. That's the best that I can come up with without somebody explaining why this is necessary. It's insulting. How hard is it to conduct an election? All right. Now we've got section 11 that's amending current statute by adding just a few words in here. Okay. So it's defining what true source means. The statute is already defining what true source means, and we're adding a definition. So for a contribution made for the purpose of influencing a ballot proposition or question, the person or legal entity that makes the contribution or independent expenditure to support or oppose the proposition or question, or for a contribution made for the purpose of influencing a nomination or election in a candidate. Okay, so we know that this is dealing with election campaign donations and defining or adding definition to what the true source means. What was already in the statute is listed here. The person or legal entity whose contribution is funded from wages, investment income, inheritance, revenue generated from selling goods, a person or legal entity who derives, used to say derived, now it says derives, funds via contributions, donations, dues, or gifts is not the true source, but is rather, but is what it used to say is, but rather an intermediary of the true source. Okay, so we're trying to get at who the true source of campaign donations is. Okay, so for a contribution made for the purpose of influencing a ballot, a true source is the person or legal entity that makes the contribution or independent expenditure to support or oppose the proposition or in question, or the candidate. Okay, subsection B is about the candidate. What is already there, not less than $2,000 per person. Let's see. A membership organization that received dues or contributions of less than $2,000 per person, the organization itself is the true source. Okay. I'd need to talk about that and think about that just a little bit. Seems like it's tightening things up. Preparation of official ballot is amended. Not a new section. This already exists. Provisions shall be made for voting for write-in candidates for president and vice president. That's the only thing that's being added. So now, under this section, under this statute, this is the director shall prepare all official ballots to facilitate fairness, simplicity, clarity in the voting procedure, to reflect most accurately the intent of the voter, and to expedite the administration of elections. The following directives shall be followed when applicable. We're adding the sentence, provision shall be made for voting for write-in candidates for president and vice president. So if you don't want anybody that's made it through the primary and you don't like who's on the ballot, then you have to have a provision for a write-in candidate. Okay. And that's it for that section. Section 13, amending. So we're looking for underlines. Okay, what are we talking about? Immediately following the appointment of the election board. So we're talking about election board appointments. The election supervisor, in conjunction with the election board chair, shall secure polling places for holding the election, suitable ballot boxes that will ensure, not assure, this is just simple English, right? Assure and ensure have two different meanings, but they sound alike. Ensure is what you actually want. Ensure security. And an adequate number of voting booths or screens. Okay, so that's not being changed. All that was changed in this statute here was they added the word ensure and deleted this text here. So they're going to ensure security and an adequate number of voting booths or screens, national flags, pens, and pencils at every polling place. At least one voting booth shall be furnished with, and not less than one voting booth furnished with for each 100 votes or fractional part of 100 votes cast in the election. They're deleting at every polling place, at least one half of the voting booths used shall be not less than 6 feet in height, enclosed on three sides, and provided with a curtain extending from the top of the voting booth to within approximately 30 inches of the floor. So it's your privacy screening for your ballots. That's what was deleted. The curtain of the voting booth must conceal the voter while voting. That was deleted. The election supervisor and election board chair may, in an emergency, secure an alternate location for a polling place. Okay, so are we less secure, or are our elections less secure because now the statute does not require, that's the right way to say this, does not require that at least half of the voting booths be not less than 6 feet in height. Okay, so this is, you go in and you've got the wheelchair accessible ones, the shorter ones, enclosed on three sides and provide a curtain extending from the top. When I look at, when I go in to vote, every time I've gone in to vote, and half of them are, you have to sit down and the other half can be standing. How many people come in with a wheelchair? Do you need half of them to be wheelchair or seated? I don't know. Can the people that are local running the election provide the space necessary? This seems like it's going to make it easier to run the election and less costly because you don't have to have two different types of voting booths, or you have to have fewer of your short booths and more of your tall booths for people that are standing, right? Or maybe you just make them all seated booths and you no longer have standing booths. You can figure this out locally, right? Unless there's another section here that adds how they're actually going to do it, you're just removing the need to have half of them as the 30 inches from the floor, a curtain 30 inches from the floor. Okay. Forgive me, there's probably somebody out here that thinks this is a big deal. To me, this is not a big deal. This also should not be construed to mean that people in wheelchairs won't be able to vote. That's not what this means. It just means that the statute no longer requires that half of the voting booths be wheelchair accessible. Make sure that I'm correct. Yeah, I think I'm correct on that. Okay, moving on. If I'm incorrect, you can correct me. That's what I think it says. Okay. Section 15.060B is amended to read, again, we're correcting the statute to use correct English, to ensure administrative economy and to protect the secrecy of the ballot. So the word ensure is being added and usher is being deleted. Subsection 3 in that section B is deleted, subject to the specifications of this section. Okay, so let's figure out what this actually is meaning. To ensure administrative economy and to protect the secrecy of the ballot, the director may adopt regulations prescribing the type of polling place for holding the election, the requirements regarding ballot boxes, voting screens, national flags, and other supplies, and the requirements regarding voting booths. Okay, so do you see how this section and the previous section go together? The statute said at least one half, less than 6 feet, curtain's got to be 30 inches from the floor, and that's in the law, so you have to do it. And if you want to change that for any reason, you can't because it's in the law. The administration, the Division of Elections, is now going to be able to do it by regulation. Okay? they will be able to administratively, this is administrative economy, right? So this is to help with the cost. The division is going to have the responsibility to create regulations regarding voting booths. And they no longer have to have this statute hanging over them that says 1/2, 6 feet, 30 inches. There's some leeway. What if it was 29 inches? Well, we can't use that one because it's not 30 inches, right? So there's some flexibility being baked in here. This isn't to say that you're not going to have, like, I'm pretty sure that the federal law is going to require that there be ADA compliant locations to vote, right? So this, if someone's saying we just passed a bill and it's taking away people in wheelchairs' ability to vote, you can tell them that's complete nonsense. That's not what the bill is doing. Section 15 amended. Before being allowed to vote, each, let's see, what's being added. Okay, so the text that's being added is identification card used by federally recognized tribe and deleting hunting or fishing license, or an original copy of current utility bill, bank statement, paycheck, government check, or other government document. An item exhibited under this paragraph must show the name and current address of the voter, but nothing with voter ID or with picture ID, right? So that's being deleted. So you'd have to go to the statute to know exactly which statute that's referring to. But the text is saying before being allowed to vote, each voter shall exhibit to an election official one form of identification, including official voter registration card, driver's license, state ID, current and valid photo ID, birth certificate, passport. That is all currently in the statute. That's currently in the statute. Before being allowed to vote, each voter shall shall show an election official a form of ID, including your voter card, your driver's license, your state ID card, current and valid photo ID, birth certificate, or passport. And now you can use a federally recognized tribe card. This is nonsense that the state of Alaska doesn't require photo ID to vote. Well, you can use a birth certificate or passport too. Well, passport's got your photo ID on it. Birth certificate does not have photo ID on it. And if it did, it wouldn't be useful, would it? Okay. Section 16. Looks like we're maybe halfway done. AS 15-15-360D is amended to read write-in votes. Okay, so it's amended. It's not a new section. We're talking about write-in votes. And this is talking about president. We're adding the words or president, vice president of the United States. So a vote for a write-in candidate other than a write-in vote for governor and lieutenant governor or president, vice president of the United States. Okay, so this is concerning write-in votes. Shall be counted according to the following rules. And we're adding the words vice president and president. What is the 3 referring to here? Write-in votes shall be counted according to the following rules. 1, 2, 3. A vote for a write-in candidate or other shall be counted if the oval is filled in for that candidate and if the name of the candidate as it appears on the write-in declaration of candidacy or the last name of the candidate is written in the space provided. Okay? So the only thing that's changing here is that what applied to the governor and the lieutenant governor now applies for president and vice president. Okay. Somebody wants to be able to write in their preferred candidate for president and vice president. Again, in the scheme of things, not sure this is a big deal. Matter of fact, I know this is not a big deal to the majority of the population. If the write-in, this is text being added. If the write-in vote is for president and vice president of the United States, the vote shall be counted if the oval is filled in and the names of the candidate, vice president, as they appear in the write-in declaration of candidacy, or last names of the candidate for president, vice president, or the name of the candidate for president as it appears on the write-in declaration of candidacy, or the last name of the candidate for the president is written in the space provided. Okay, so now that's in statute. Now it's clear when you can write in for president, vice president. Okay, renumber 6. Okay, that's it. Section 18. I don't know why we had to have section 17. So somebody's going to have to explain to me why this is important. AS 15-15-380 is amended. Okay. All of this is current statute. They're deleting by regulation. So what's being deleted? This is concerning payment of election board members. The director shall pay each election board member for time spent at election duties, including the receiving of instructions. Election board chairpersons and the chairperson and members of the absentee ballot, question ballot, state ballot counting review boards shall be paid for time spent at their election duties. The director shall set the compensation to be paid under this section by regulation. Okay, so now they don't have to do it by regulation. The director is just going to determine it. Okay. Not sure that I really care for that. By the effect here is when you establish something by regulation, there's a public process and the legislature gets to weigh in on the regulation. Now, the bill is going to allow the director to just set that compensation and they won't have to go through that review process. Okay, I think I kind of like the by regulation, but is this a big deal? Probably not. Maybe it is. I mean, if this is a large dollar figure, we're talking about paying for election board members. I would feel better if they would just communicate to the legislature how much they're being paid, how much money is going out. But again, this is going to have to be within the Division of Elections budget. So the legislature has purview over how much is being spent here just by asking simple questions during the budget process. Section 19, amended to read. Okay, so we're talking not a new section. This is current law. And all that's being added here is a postage paid return. So what are we talking about? Preparation of ballots, envelopes, and other material. So we're probably talking absentee ballots here. The director shall provide ballots for the use as absentee ballots in all districts. The director shall provide a secrecy sleeve in which the voter shall initially place the marked ballot and shall provide a postage paid return. Okay, so the policy call that's being changed in this law is that the state government is going to start paying for your ballots to be sent back. Postage paid return envelope. So where you used to have to put a stamp on there and you've got your your cost for shipping your ballot back. Now taxpayers are going to pick up that. Okay. We really want government to do everything for us, don't we? Okay, what's also being added? The envelope with the voter certificate may not identify a voter's party affiliation, but, okay, so how is that? The voter's certificate shall include a declaration for use. I'm trying to get some context here to understand why this is important. The director shall prescribe the form and prepare the voter certificate, envelopes, and other material used for voting. The voter certificate shall include a declaration for use when required that the voter is a qualified voter in all respects. So this is the actual vote that you're filling out, the card you're filling out, certificate. Okay. That you're qualified in all respects. A blank for a voter's signature, a certification that the affiant. That is a new word to me. Affiant properly executed the marking of the ballot and gave, so that's your witness signature, and gave the voter's identity, blanks for the attesting official or witness, and a place for recording the date the envelope was sealed and witnessed. The envelope with the voter certificate may not identify a voter's party affiliation. So this is statute telling the director that in creating your ballot, absentee ballot, and the secrecy sleeve, there can't be anything identifying the voter's party affiliation within that. So you can't require them to put their R, their D next to their name or something else so that somebody can see from the outside of the ballot as it's going through the mail system that this person is part of one particular party or another. That's what I think this is making it clear. Don't know if that's a problem looking for a solution, or a solution looking for a problem, or whether we actually have a problem with that. But okay, that was a lot of effort to figure out what that actually meant. Anyway, section 20, time check. All right. 15 AS 1520-081F is amended. Okay, so this is another section of statute that's adding in identification card for a federally recognized tribe and deleting hunting or fishing license, or the other ways that the state used to allow identity check, utility bill, bank statement, paycheck, government check, etc. And this is, let's see if we can figure out what this is. Director shall require a voter casting an absentee ballot by mail to provide proof of identification. I'm not sure how this statute change is different, what section this is. We'd have to go look at the actual law and how that's different from the previous section that we read that looks similar. So it's keeping it consistent in law. For some reason, it needs to say it in two different places. You would literally have to go look up the law to see what the difference is between those two statutes, because it's not clear reading the bill. But the context is still the same, right? We're adding federally recognized tribal ID. Section 21, AS 1520-081H is amended. We're adding the word the and deleting a primary. Okay, so what is this talking about? This is, except as provided in this statute, an absentee ballot returned by mail from outside the United States or from an overseas voter qualifying under this statute that has been marked and mailed not later than election day may not be counted unless the ballot is received by the election supervisor not later than the close of the business day on the 10th day following the election. So it's removing distinction of primary or special primary election in this particular statute. It is deleting 15th day following a general election or special election or other special primary election described in this subsection. Okay, so the net, what this reads after it's completely done is it's treating a primary and a general in the same way, and it just says the 10th day following the election. So absentee ballots from outside the United States, from overseas voters. So we're really talking military. Well, not just military. You have expats that are living in other countries who could be voting here and probably do. As long as the ballot's been postmarked and mailed not later than election day, that ballot can't be counted, may not be counted unless the ballot is received by the election supervisor not later than the close of the business day on the 10th day following the election. Okay, so this is not changing the number of days. All this is doing is clearing the statute up that says it's treating primary and general in the same sense. It used to be 15th day following a general election and 10th day during a primary. Now it's 10 days for both. That actually got more conservative. We had to wait 15 days for a general election and only 10 days for the primary. Now we have to wait 10 days for a general election. That actually got more conservative in this bill. Okay, section 22. I don't have a problem with that. I personally think that this statute is wrong. The election supervisor needs to receive that ballot by election day. So if you're overseas, get your vote in early and make sure that it's postmarked in time to be like it goes through the mail process in time to get there on election day. This 10th day after the primary, I think that needs to go away. But that's not what this bill does. This bill treats both elections the same and still continues the policy of we can treat the election absentee ballot. We can continue to count it up to 10 days. Right? Now, caveat. This is a statute that the Supreme Court is looking at in regards to the Georgia case, that we may have to change this This may become null and void if the Supreme Court, U.S. Supreme Court, says all your ballots need to be received by the state election supervisor, your election system, on election day. No more of this counting ballots after the election, the day of the election. If the Supreme Court comes in and says that, then this change here, that this simplification or reducing it from 15 to 10 days would become null and void because the Supreme Court would overrule it. We would have to come in and change that. So stay tuned. I may get my way yet. Not because of the legislature, but because of the U.S. Supreme Court. If the court comes back, depending on how they rule, this statute may stay in effect and it's 10 days. All right. I would rather it be 10 days than 15 days. Okay. AS 1520-170 is amended to read. Okay, so it's an amended, not a new section. This is all current statute except for the changes. Section 1520-170, talking about disposition of ballots. What's being added? In this section, mail service includes delivery by optical scanning and electronic transmission. Okay, why is that pertinent? What are we talking about? Each absentee voting official shall transmit the dated envelopes containing the marked ballots by the most expeditious mail service to the election supervisor for the district. Upon receipt of the absentee ballot, the election supervisor shall stamp on the envelope the date on which the ballot is received. In this section, mail service includes delivery by optical scanning and electronic transmission. So we're talking about email. So a ballot that has been scanned and sent by email okay. It's got hairs on the back of my neck climbing up just a little bit here. Each absentee voting official shall transmit the dated envelopes containing the marked ballots. So how do you have envelopes with electronic transmission? By the most expeditious mail service, and mail service includes email. This seems like it is not doable. How can you have dated envelopes containing marked ballots and mail service includes optical scanning? Yeah, I don't see how this is even doable. Like, that doesn't make any sense. Why would you make the definition of mail service include email when you're talking about receiving physically dated envelopes? Because are you scanning your envelope and scanning your counted ballot and sending it by email? Okay. This is a section that I would have to ask questions on because it raises flags in my mind. If you can just scan your absentee ballot in, can anybody scan any absentee ballot in and send it? I guess as long as it's got the signatures and the voter ID, and it's a legitimate ballot, does it matter whether it comes in by the mail or does it come in by email? I don't know. I would prefer that we not be voting by email. That's what I would prefer. I'm not in favor of this particular provision of the bill, I think. Section 23, AS 1520-201A is amended to read. Not instead of no. So it used to say no less, and now we're going to say not less. Okay. Not less than 12 days instead of 7 days preceding the day of the election. The election supervisor, in the presence and with assistance of the district absentee ballot counting board, shall review all voter certificates, all votes of absentee ballots received by that date. The review of the absentee ballot shall continue at times designated by the election supervisor. Okay. Not less than 12. So we're increasing from 7 to 12. Preceding before the day of the election, the election supervisor, in the presence with the assistant, the counting board, shall review all vote ballots of absentee ballots received by that date. Okay, so instead of 7 days prior to the election, now it will be 12 days prior to the election. They'll start counting absentee ballots. Okay. Maybe they need more time. I'm thinking here how this could be a bad thing. You're counting absentee ballots all the way up until the election date, and then 10 days later per this bill. Right now it's 15 for a general election. You can start by statute. You can now start 12 days earlier, or 12 days before the election instead of 7 days before the election. Okay. Somebody explain to me how that increases risk. I guess maybe this is the whole early voting piece that I'm not in favor of having the early voting, but if you've got the absentee ballots out there, somebody's got to count them as they're coming in. I am in favor of absentee ballots because I've had to be absent and want to be able to vote absentee. I don't see a problem with this. Somebody let me know why counting 12 days before the election is higher risk than counting 7 days. Okay, hopefully we're close to done here. Section 24, AS 1520-203B is amended to read. So this is current statute. What are we changing? There we are. Okay, another change to federal recognized tribal card is going to be accepted. And this is in the section dealing with an absentee ballot may be counted if an absentee ballot may not be counted if, and then it lists 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 reasons why it can't. And the sixth reason has an A and a B. And in the B, it says by mail or electronic transmission is a first-time voter initially registered by mail who has not met the identification requirements set out and who does not submit a ballot, submit with the ballot a copy of. Okay, so now before they could submit driver's license, state ID card, current and valid photo ID, now they can use their federally recognized tribal ID under this section. So all it's doing is saying if you could have used your driver's license before under this section, then you can now use your tribal ID. Okay. Section 25 is amending AS 1520-207B. A question ballot may not be, okay, so this is just this is current statute and it's adding federal statute, reference to federal statute. A question ballot may not be counted if the voter is a first-time voter who initially registered by mail or email or fax, approved by the director under this statute, has not provided the identification required under our statute or adding federal statute. So now there's a federal requirement here that they're going to have to consider. And that's what that's adding. I don't know what that federal statute is. Let's go to 26 because that's all that 25 did. Section 26 amends current statute, adds the words absentee ballots properly cured under AS 1520-222C. Okay. The State Review Board shall review and count absentee ballots under current statute E and H, and they're adding absentee ballots properly cured. Okay, so the State Review Board is going to review absentee ballots properly cured under this statute that's probably going to be created in this bill. And question ballots. So that's current stat. Basically, the way to read this, the State Review Board shall review and count absentee ballots under this current statute and question ballots that have been forwarded to the director and have not been reviewed or accounted by the district counting board. And you're adding in absentee ballots properly cured. Okay, so State Review Board has to review your cured ballots. That's what that's. So when we're talking about ballot curing, not only are those ballots being touched again because they had information that needed to be corrected. But now the State Review Board is going to have to review them. Okay, AS 1520 is amended by adding a completely new section. So this is the ballot tracking system. Okay, so this ballot tracking system, I happen to know, also has a tie to it with this property cured section. So I'm going to jump really quick, just so you're aware, all the way down to the bottom of the bill. And it talks here about this 1520-222 enacted in section 28 of this act takes effect only if 221 enacted in section 27 takes effect. Okay, so now let's go back up to 27 and 28. Okay, so that's 27's talking about, that's creating new law that's talking about ballot tracking system. Section 28, procedures for curing ballots. Okay, so this bill as drafted says that these only take effect if they both are in the bill. If you amend one of those sections out, the other section doesn't take effect. Okay, so ballot tracking system is hand in hand with a ballot curing process. The director shall establish an online ballot tracking system. What is it going to track? If the director procures the system from a third party, the third party must be a corporation that is incorporated in the United States. So it's got to be a U.S. system. The system must be designed to allow a voter to easily use the system through a mobile electronic device. You got to be able to use it by your phone. Okay, kidding. This is in statute now. The system must allow a voter to confirm that the voter's ballot has been sent by the division. Okay. When you ask for an absentee ballot, do you know currently whether the Division of Elections received your request? If you don't, now there's going to be a ballot tracking system that you can go on and check to see that they have received your request. You'll be able to see the date of the ballot's delivery to yourself. You'll be able to confirm the division's receipt of your ballot, not your request for an absentee ballot, your ballot. When you submit your absentee ballot now, do you know whether the state received your ballot and counted it? You have no way to know. Because this bill passed, now the Division of Elections is going to create a system where you can confirm that your absentee ballot has actually been received. Determine whether the voter's ballot has been counted. So not only received, but counted. And provide information necessary to cure a rejected ballot. Okay, so the system has to tell you what information is necessary to cure your rejected ballot, because they're not going to count your ballot. You sent your absentee ballot in and it's been rejected. Bingo, you lose. You don't get to vote this year because your absentee ballot was rejected. If they did that currently, you would have no way to know that your vote wasn't counted. Now there's going to be a system that you can quick check in on your phone and see whether your absentee ballot has been counted. Oh, it's rejected because of reasons. So let's find out what those are. The online ballot tracking system must use multi-factor authentication to verify a voter's identity and indicate to a voter the process by which the voter may cure the lack of signature or verify the voter's identity if the signature on the voter's ballot was missing, and the reason the voter's ballot was not counted if the ballot was not counted. The division may not charge a fee to the voter to use the online ballot tracking. Okay, so now this new section, section 28, is creating a new section for procedures for curing uncounted ballot. If a voter's ballot is rejected, if a absentee ballot is rejected because the certificate, the card that's inside the sleeve, if the actual ballot is rejected because the certificate is missing the voter's signature or the signature of a testing official or witness, so that's a witness signature, or the voter provided insufficient voter identification, so your voter ID number or your driver's license, the director shall immediately make reasonable effort to contact the voter, explain the ballot deficiency, explain that the deficiency may be cured under this section, and inform the voter of the deadline to cure the ballot. The director shall, within 24 hours, send a notice of deficiency by electronic mail to the voter's electronic mail address if the voter has provided an electronic mail address. So if you've given your email address to DOE, Division of Elections, they're going to try to contact you by email to let you know that your ballot needs to be fixed, that it's not going to get counted. If the voter has provided a telephone number, they're going to reach you by telephone, specifically within 24 hours. The director shall, within 48 hours, but not later than 5 days after Election Day, send a notice of deficiency by first-class non-forwardable mail. So this would have to change probably if the U.S. Supreme Court rules against ballots being counted after the election. But the bill says within 48 hours, but not later than 5 days after the election. Remember, absentee ballots are still from overseas are still being counted up to or received up to 10 days later, and obviously counted 10 days later. Okay, so not later than 5 days after the election, send a notice of deficiency by first-class non-forwardable mail to the address provided by the voter's absentee ballot application. If no address was provided on the voter's absentee ballot application to the mailing address, I'm sorry, I misread that. Send a notice of deficiency by first-class non-forwardable mail to the address provided on the voter's absentee ballot application, or if no address was provided on the ballot application, to the mailing address in the voter's registration record. So whatever the voter registration file, the main voter roll is, whatever your address is there, if you left it off your ballot, they're going to send the notice that your ballot's not going to be counted to your address on record in the voter rolls. A notice of deficiency must include a form for the voter to confirm that the voter returned a ballot to the division, to provide a copy of a form of identification accepted by the division under this statute, which is your picture ID list or your government ID list, and provide a signature. Director shall provide a printed copy of the form with a notice of deficiency mailed to the voter. The director shall also make the form available in a format that can be completed and returned electronically. Okay, so you're going to be able to fix this electronically. But what are you fixing? Remember, the only three things that you can fix are your signature, the witness signature, and your verifying number, your date of birth or your voter ID number or whatever other acceptable numbers are. Those are the only things that you can change to cure your ballot. And in order to do that, when you voted absentee, you did not have to provide a form of identification. But if you want to fix your ballot because it wasn't counted, you were stupid and you couldn't figure out how to fill out your ballot correctly, now you can fix it, but you have to send a copy of your photo ID. You have to send a copy of your driver's license proving who you are that's going to be fixing this ballot. The rejected ballot of a voter who received a notice of deficiency may be counted only if the voter returns the completed form sent with the notice of deficiency within 10 days after Election Day. So this matches the counting that we're changing to allowing to receive voters' absentee ballots from overseas. It's matching that date. And the form confirms that the voter returned a ballot to the division. The voter, again, may only be counted if the voter signs the form sent with the notice of deficiency and includes a copy of a form of identification accepted by the division. The ballot is otherwise valid. Oh, yeah, it's saying if the ballot's otherwise valid, then it can be counted. A voter's rejected ballot may not be counted, and the director shall, if applicable, send copies of the signature on the voter's return envelope to the Attorney General for investigation if the voter returns the form and the form indicates that the voter did not return a ballot to the division. Okay, let's reread that for a second, and I'm going to slow down. The Division of Elections rejects an absentee ballot. And it says it may not be counted, and the director shall, if applicable, send copies of the signature on the voter's return envelope and the Attorney General to the Attorney General for investigation if the voter returns the form and the form indicates that the voter did not return a ballot to the division. Okay. So one of the things that I recognize as a risk, and they're identifying this in other states, is that multiple voters have the same address. You're talking like apartment complexes or rental units or things like that. So the voter rolls have multiple voters, eligible voters for an absentee ballot at a single address. So you can have a bunch of absentee ballots go out to a single address. It means that some ballots may be at risk of falling into hands of people who shouldn't have them. Okay. Because you're no longer at that address. You're somewhere else. Because many people can't live at the same address, like a bunch of different last names, right? They're not family members. They're strangers. They're not related to each other. They don't live there anymore, but their ballots go there because their address is still on file with a Division of Elections. What it's saying here is that if the voter says, I didn't return a ballot to the division, but the division is holding a ballot from that voter and it's been rejected, they caught it. By statute, they have to forward that to the Attorney General so that they can investigate it, because that's a crime. Okay. So that's what this bill is telling. I don't know whether it's not in the statute elsewhere, but it is now going to be in statute because this bill was passed. Attorney General, you're now going to have a possibility for having to do investigations for ballots that came in when somebody didn't fill out the ballot. I didn't ask for an absentee ballot. It got sent to me anyway. I never received it. Somebody else sent it in, signed it for me. Okay. You notified me that the signature doesn't match, or they forgot to put the signature on it and they just sent it in. I didn't send it in the first place. Okay. Well, now we're going to forward that to law enforcement to figure this out. I think that's a good thing. It's not repealing ranked choice voting, but it sure makes me happy that the law is telling Division of Elections that you got to treat that as a crime, send it to the Attorney General. Section 29 is amended by adding a new subsection. So all of this is new. A write-in candidate running for the office. Okay, write-in candidates for president again. A write-in candidate running for the office of President of the United States must file a letter with the director certifying the information required under this statute. Whatever. Somebody explain to me why this is important. Section 30, AS 1556030D is amended to read, for purposes of, I get it. You haters out there. I get it. Some people, it's the principle of the matter. I don't want to vote for any of the candidates for president. I want to write my own in. I get it. I understand. I'm being somewhat flippant here. Okay. I get it. I understand. We'll take care of you too. Section 30, AS 1556030D is amended to read, for purposes of this subsection, other valuable thing. This is funny. Okay. So we're going to define what other valuable thing means. No, it is already defining what other valuable thing is. This is amended to read. So I'm looking for underlines. This has been a long bill. See, it's easy. Okay. We deleted and we added and we deleted postage paid returned envelopes required in the statute. So this is addressing the postage paid envelope policy change that happened in the previous section in the bill. This is addressing that in another statute that needs to be done. So to make it consistent across the law. So we're talking about game of chance, government employee benefits, materials does not include. What are we really talking for purposes? So this is a case of an example where you would have to go to the statute to figure out what exactly they're talking about here. But in this context, it is keeping the statute consistent with regard to postage paid return envelopes required. Okay. Section 31, again, is amended. This is current statute. It's being amended by adding these words: intentionally opens or tampers with signed absentee ballot. Okay, so I know what this is doing right off just reading this. This is adding to the criminal statutes of what somebody can be charged with. There we go. A person commits the crime of unlawful interference with an election if the person 1, 2, 3, 4, and adding 5 and 6. So person commits a crime of unlawful interference with an election if intentionally opens or tampers with a signed absentee ballot certificate, sealed absentee ballot envelope, or package of ballots without express authorization from the director, or intentionally breaks, hacks, alters, or tampers with election machinery, including a tabulator, program, system, server, or software used to verify identity, count, or tabulate, or manage or control an election function. I'm in favor of that. Are you? Section 32 is amended. It's another crime section. So we're adding a person commits the crime of election official misconduct in the first degree if 1, 2, 3, adding 4. If that person knowingly discloses, shares, or reports to a person who is not an election official election results, returns, or any confidential election data before the polls close on election day. Okay? I'm in favor of election data not being shared before the close of the polls. And I'm in favor of it being a crime that somebody can be charged with so that it has teeth. AS 43-2301 is amended. Voter registration. Each month, and we're deleting the. That's funny. You didn't have to have that deletion. Each month, the commissioner shall provide the director of elections with the following information for each permanent fund dividend applicant. Okay, so we're dealing with the voter registration and the dividend situation. 1, adding the words the and record, the electronic record, deleting records from the permanent fund dividend applications. So the electronic record of the information required by this other statute, that the information is true for each permanent fund dividend applicant who is a citizen of the United States and at least 18 years of age. Adds the applicant's mailing address, just clarifying that the mailing. Okay. Well, this is funky the way that it's written. And whether the applicant has claimed residency in another state. Okay. So let's just break this down as to what it is saying now instead of trying to figure out what it used to say. Each month, the commissioner shall provide the director of elections with the following information for each permanent fund dividend applicant. So we're talking about the commissioner of Department of Revenue shall provide the electronic record of the information required by statute and the attestation that the information is true for each permanent fund dividend applicant who is a citizen and is 18 years of age. The applicant's mailing address and whether the applicant has claimed residency in another state. Okay. So that's when I'm looking at that as a cleanup in saying that the DOR has to certify that the records are true and whether the applicant has claimed residency in another state, because that would be pertinent to the voter people. Section 34 is amended with a new subsection. The commissioner, so this is all new. The commissioner shall develop security protocols that ensure data required to be stored or transferred under this section is securely stored or transferred. In cooperation with the Division of Elections, the commissioner shall submit an annual report to the governor and to the Senate secretary and chief clerk of the House. Okay, so the legislature by the first day of each session. Security protocols that ensure data required to be stored or transferred on the section is securely stored or transferred. Well, I'm in favor of that. Is anybody not in favor of that? Section 35. Codified law of the state of Alaska's amendment. I'm getting a little exasperated here, just to be perfectly honest with you. I'm getting a little exasperated because I'm reading through this bill. I'm going to check the comments over here in a minute, but I'm reading through this bill and I'm not seeing anything that's glaring at me as like this is a bad bill. We should not pass this bill. I'm not seeing anything. Okay. We're going to come to something that I think highlights why this is a bad bill, but right now, I'm not seeing much of anything. There's been a couple sections where I'm like, yeah, I wouldn't do that. That was not a priority for me. Not a huge deal. So now we've got another section, a report to the legislature. Division of Elections shall provide a report to the legislature by the first day of the legislature. Okay. So whenever a report comes in, you got to ask the question, who did the report? What'd that cost? What is the people who are receiving the report going to do with the information? Otherwise, it's just another piece of paper or another email that costs somebody money and time, state worker time, for a purpose that nobody reads it and nobody cares. So why did we just create this regulate or this law that forces people to do work that isn't going to be useful? Okay. So let's keep that in the back of our mind. Division of Elections shall report to the legislature, recommending options for expanding early voting in rural communities and low-income neighborhoods. All right, I'm not in favor of that. But it's not doing that. It's not expanding early voting in rural communities and low-income neighborhoods, okay? I'm not. This is just a report. Division shall deliver the report to the Senate secretary and the chief clerk. We already have the ability to vote in rural communities and low-income neighborhoods. This is searching. This is a solution searching for a problem. Division shall deliver the report to the Senate secretary and the chief clerk of the House of Representatives. Okay, low-income neighborhood, and they're going to define what those mean. Okay, you know what that is? Somebody wanted to expand early voting. And the political compromise that happened in this bill turned into a report because they didn't have the support to expand early voting. That's probably what this is all about. I'm just guessing because the legislature needs another report like they need. I don't know what the example is. Uncodified law, the state of Alaska is amended by adding a new section to read applicability. Okay, so we're at the end of the bill here. I want to point out something. This section takes effect immediately. Section 11 of this takes effect January 27th. Sections take effect the 26th. So I'd have to go back and look at which sections these take effect. So here's the thing. Representative Ruffridge made a really good point on the floor. And now I'm going to have to go look. He made a really good point. Sitting legislators making changes to election law that are going to affect the next election that they're going to be running in may benefit them as candidates. So what should happen in that case is that those changes don't take effect until after the next election, and they would take effect at the next election following, so that legislators can't change the rules prior to the election that would benefit them. Okay. So if that's the case, if any of these things in here that we've just covered today in this bill benefited incumbents, then it should be delayed until after the next election. So now what you would have to do is go back into these sections and just look at the conditional. So it says that this statute, I'm just looking here at section 39, conditional effect, subsection A, lists a statute enacted by section 27, takes effect only if, we already talked about this. This is the combination of those two sections. So both those sections have to take effect. If one of them is deleted, then it doesn't work. It won't take effect. And B is the same way. So it's conditional effect to make sure that portions of the bill remain intact. Okay. Again, this is another thing that I point out with a fiscal plan for the legislature. You can write conditional language about other bills as well. If that other bill doesn't pass, or this provision doesn't pass, then this bill doesn't pass. So you want to tie a spending limit together with a tax, or tie a tax with a reduction, a bill that reduces spending somewhere. You want to tie those together? You can do that. Just put a conditional effect in. Section 40, Section 11 of this act takes effect January 27. Sections 26, 28, and 39 take effect September 19th, 2026. And except as provided in sections 40 and 41, this whole thing takes effect immediately. Okay, so what I'm not going to do is go jump back through there because I've been here an hour. But the point that I want to get at is I would vote no on this bill simply out of the principle, after having gone and checked all of these things out, and I'm going to trust that Representative Ruffridge did that because he's the one that made the point on the floor. If any of those pieces of this legislation affect me as the incumbent, right, because I'm voting on it, and it takes effect immediately, meaning it's going to impact the next election, then I should not be doing that. I should say, no, we not do that. Change this effective date so that it takes effect to the following election, then I can support it. I can support the changes. Like I said, most of what I saw in this bill are things that I agree with. They make the election process better. There's a couple of things that I don't agree with, but I would be one of 60 in the legislature. I'm not going to get everything that I want in a bill, especially something as contentious as elections. Yes, it doesn't do things that I want it to do, like repealing this automatic voter registration. It doesn't repeal ranked choice voting. It doesn't get rid of the early voting process that we do. It doesn't do any of that. But the things that it does put in there, I think are pretty good. And the one reason that I would have to vote against this is the conditional language that's not in here. And potentially it is. I did not go and look at this to see whether the sections that are listed in here are actually delaying it. The only one that really that speaks to my concern right now is section 40. Let me show you section 40. Section 40 says section 11 of this act takes effect January 27. That's after this next election. These sections are before the November election. So that potentially makes my point valid. Everything else in the bill, except for sections 40 and 41, and why are they special? This act takes effect immediately. So the rest of the bill takes effect immediately. So I would be concerned about agreeing to a bill that's going to change statutes that would make it easier for me to get elected or that would benefit me in some way. I would not want to do that. Or benefit, I guess another way to look at it is, are my voters or people who are going to vote for me is that going to benefit me by these changes? And if so, then it needs to be delayed until after the voters have a chance to identify whether they want me to serve again and then the following election, these things take effect. That's what I think is fair. Otherwise, you're setting precedent for legislators coming in and tinkering with the election system before the election to benefit themselves. So that's Senate Bill 64. So now I'm going to jump over here to see what y'all had to say about Senate Bill 64. Let's see. We have to pass the bill before we know what's in it. That's not entirely accurate. You just have to know where to go to look to find it, because it right there. I don't know whether that disappears, or do I have to remove? Okay, yeah, I do have to. Okay, so here's what I'm learning about this new system here. The StreamYard is that I have to shut it off. I show your quote, your statement there on your text, and then I have to turn it off. Anyway, you don't care about that. Let's see here. I'm looking for questions. Something about, remember when they counted Murkowski write-in votes regardless? Yeah. And it had to just be close to Murkowski's name, right? Yes. Still a little sour about that. Question here. If they need more time to cure ballots, they will have extra days to contact the voter. Yes, if I remember correctly, they have time to connect with the voter up until that 10 days after the election, when all of your overseas ballots, which are the latest ballots that should be ever received by the state, are the ones that are coming from halfway around the world. Those should be the last that you ever receive. You have up until that time before to cure your ballot, to contact the Division of Elections and fix and cure it. Give them your signature, your witness signature, your voter number, driver's license number, and your photo ID. You have them until that point to fix it. Otherwise, it'll not be counted. Okay, what are we saying here? Hey, Representative McCabe, thanks for joining us. The election system contains ranked choice voting. Ranked choice voting is a process inside the system. We need to fix the system to actually remove or amend or fix the process. Yeah. That's not in this bill. It has nothing to do. That has nothing to do with this bill. Ranked choice voting or repealing ranked choice voting or fixing ranked choice voting. None of that has anything. We just read the bill. It's not even related. I don't even see. I know there's an argument out there that says, oh, if we pass this bill, it's going to be harder to repeal ranked choice voting. I don't get that argument. That does not sound like a reasonable argument to me. I don't understand it. Somebody's going to have to educate me on why that's a thing. Yeah, you and me too. You and me both, brother. Just want ranked choice voting to go away. I am in agreement. That is not a good way to vote. It's too complicated. Okay, Kevin. The system is fixed by adding in postpaid envelopes and ballot tracking, which will allow more ballots to be received and counted, which could help with the removal of ranked choice voting. Okay, the system is fixed by adding in postpaid envelopes and ballot tracking, which will allow more absentee ballots, allow more people to vote, which could help with the removal of ranked choice voting. Well, I mean, the removal of it or the keeping of it. If more people are voting and they're all in favor of keeping ranked choice voting, then it helps with that. But if they're in favor of repealing ranked choice voting, then it helps with that. So it's a double-edged sword in this sense. And for that matter, any citizens initiative, right, would benefit from people being able to know whether their absentee ballot got counted or not. And that's the problem that we have now is we don't know. You might have made an inadvertent mistake and you don't know. Maybe I should have Kevin on the show and we talk about this. Yeah. Thanks, Kevin. Again, ranked choice voting is not in the bill. The bill deals with a system that contains the process. Fix the system or buttress this. Yeah, improve the system to have a better chance of removing ranked choice voting. I understand that argument. So now you can take this information and listen to the press and the news articles and the social media posts and the people talking all over about why this bill was good or why this bill was bad. And you've now heard the God's honest truth, the facts as they are. I did give you my opinion on some of the sections, but we went through the entire bill and read it. And I bet you, me, and the handful of people that are watching, that may be more than the number of legislators that read the bill. Just saying. Best way to remove ranked choice voting is go out and vote. So it's removed. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Do not be afraid to vote yes. Because a yes vote, as long as this I don't know how this lawsuit's going to, I don't know how the lawsuit's going to pan out here, but it should be a vote yes to repeal. Don't be afraid to vote yes to repeal. Anyway, thanks for joining us tonight. So far, I think everything has worked with this new system. I'm still not as comfortable as I was before, but I think I've got the hang of it. And to be honest, you that follow along with Michael Duke's show, and he has helped me get my show up and running. He recommended to use this application here a number of weeks ago, and I decided to go with a different system. I may be regretting the decision that I made, but there was a logical reason. The Riverside app to do podcasting automatically takes the audio and the video that you shoot and record, and it puts it through AI, and it spits out little clips that you can turn into reels and shorts and use for other purposes. And it automatically gives you a transcript of the conversation that you've had here. And I felt like that was a really big a really big selling point for why I used Riverside. StreamYard, it apparently doesn't do that automatically. So now I'm going to have to do it on my own. And it's just one more step. But hey, maybe StreamYard will figure it out and get that set up. Anyway, let's see here. You have to watch the wording on the ballot when you vote. Yeah, that's true. But yes to repeal is easy to remember. Vote yes. There'll be a bullet for yes, and there'll be a bullet for no. Yes to repeal. Kevin has yes to end the mess. Vote yes to end the mess. That's pretty catchy. All right, guys. We're going to be back on tomorrow night at 7 p.m. I was just a few minutes. No, I was right on time today. I got this with this new system. It's going to work great. I want you all to have a wonderful evening, and we will catch you again tomorrow. Again, drop me an email, producer@oversightlive.com. If there's something you want me to address, another bill you want me to run through, or committee that you want me to highlight, what's on your mind? That's what needs to be on my mind. I want to help you understand what's going on down in Juneau. I'm going to prioritize what I think you need to know. Now's your opportunity to let me know what you want to know about, and I will do my best to make that happen. So drop me a note. All right. Now I have to figure out how to end the show. I don't see how to do that. Let's click some buttons and figure out how to make that happen. Good night, all. Look, I don't know how to end it. Here's the button. I'm going to just click this one. See y'all.